I am going to give you the honest take on this case that most true crime creators are too afraid to say out loud. We love the idea of the helpful witness, the concerned neighbor, the grieving friend who shows up to every press conference, prints flyers, and spends their weekends combing through public records trying to find the killer. We root for that person. We trust that person. But what if that person was the killer, and the entire investigation was a performance designed to redirect suspicion while he used the very tools detectives use to stay one step ahead of them? In 2010, Marc Girardot watched his own case unfold in real time. He searched databases, he studied investigative timelines, he used online records and digital tools to track exactly how close law enforcement was getting. He thought no one was watching him watch the case. He was wrong. And the moment investigators pulled his search history, the entire illusion collapsed in under 48 hours. Here is the myth that gets repeated in every true crime forum, every Reddit thread, every amateur sleuth community online. The myth is this: killers go quiet after the crime. They disappear. They move on. They avoid anything connected to the case because getting close to the investigation is the fastest way to get caught. That is what we have been told. That is what every procedural drama has conditioned you to believe. Keep your head down. Do not talk to police. Do not insert yourself into the search. And for decades, that idea shaped how investigators profiled suspects. If someone was loud, present, and cooperative, they were probably not the killer. The quiet ones, the absent ones, the ones who left town, those were your red flags. The helpful volunteer? Clean. The guy printing missing person flyers at 2 a.m.? Trustworthy. Innocent. Grieving. Except that framework has produced some of the most catastrophic investigative blind spots in modern criminal history, and this case proves exactly why. So why does this myth stick? Because it has been true enough, often enough, to feel reliable. Ted Bundy volunteered at a crisis hotline. John Wayne Gacy threw neighborhood parties. Scott Peterson went on televisions and wept for his missing wife. Each time someone like this is revealed, the cultural response is shock. Not because we expected killers to hide, but because we expected guilt to be visible. We want guilt to look a certain way, fidgety, avoidant, cold, and the psychology behind this is real. Most people cannot sustain a performance under pressure. Most guilty people do eventually withdraw, so the pattern holds about 70% of the time, and that is just enough to make it feel like a rule. But the 30%, that is where the most calculated killers live, the ones who understand that the safest place to hide is directly inside the investigation itself. The ones who know that proximity to law enforcement reads as innocence. And in the digital age, that strategy became even more dangerous, because now you can insert yourself into an investigation without ever leaving your house. Here is where the story starts to fracture. In the Girardot case, investigators initially treated him as a cooperative witness. His wife, Jen Eyre, had been killed. He was devastated. He was answering questions. He was present. But detectives noticed something small, almost too small to mention at first. His knowledge of the case was slightly ahead of theirs. Not massively, not obviously, just by a few hours, sometimes a full day. He knew details before they were released. He referenced timelines he should not have had access to yet, and when they started looking at why, they found the trail. He had been using publicly available court databases, property records, digital news archives, and open-source investigative tools to track the progress of the investigation in real time. He was not psychic. He was not connected to anyone on the inside. He was just extremely online, and extremely motivated to know exactly how much trouble he was in. That is the crack. Not a confession, not a witness, a search history. When investigators subpoenaed his digital records, what they found was a documented, time-stamped trail of obsessive research. Between April 2018 and the time of his arrest, he had run over 400 individual searches connected to the case, the investigation, and the victim. He had accessed public property records to map where evidence might be located. He had read every published detail about forensic timelines to understand what physical evidence might connect him to the scene. He had looked up how long digital forensic analysis typically takes, apparently trying to calculate his own window of exposure. He had searched for whether deleted browser data can be recovered. That last one is almost poetic in its irony. The man searching to find out if his searches could be found. And the answer, of course, was yes. Every IP address, every time. So what does this actually tell us? It tells us that the digital age did not just change how we communicate, it changed how guilt leaves evidence. Before the internet, inserting yourself into an investigation meant physical presence. It meant risk. It meant someone might see you. Now you can monitor a case from your couch, in total silence, in the dark, and leave a perfect record of every thought you had while doing it. The Gerardo case is not an anomaly. In 2017, a man in Michigan searched for information about a missing person 3 times in the hour before that person was reported missing, and that search pattern became part of the prosecution's case. In 2021, a suspect in Colorado was partially identified because his IP address appeared in access logs for a victim's private social media account the day after her disappearance. Digital footprints are not metaphors. They are literal, time-stamped, location-tagged records of where your attention went. And here is what nobody wants to admit in the true crime space: the instinct to research, to obsessively follow a case, to look things up. That instinct leaves the exact same kind of trail, whether you are guilty or just curious. The difference is context. But context takes time to establish. And before context is established, the trail is just a trail. This is the part most creators skip because it makes the audience uncomfortable. Your online searches are not private by default, not even close. Every query you run on your home network is logged by your internet service provider. That data can be subpoenaed. It can be purchased by data brokers. It can be accessed through breaches you will never hear about until years later. And in an era where true crime research is one of the most popular forms of online activity, where millions of people are searching victim names, crime scene details, investigative timelines, just out of genuine curiosity, that data sits in a pile with no label distinguishing the curious from the guilty. Now, this is exactly where I want to talk about something practical, because this is where the Gerardo story stops being about one man and starts being about a much bigger question around digital privacy. The tool he used, public databases, open search queries, unmasked IP addresses, those tools cut both ways. They exposed him, but they also expose you to anyone who might be watching your digital footprint for entirely different reasons. Advertisers, data brokers, and yes, in rare but real cases, investigators building context around a name that appeared in a log. A VPN, a virtual private network, does not make you invisible, but it does encrypt your connection and mask your IP address from your ISP, from data brokers, and from third-party logging. If you are someone who researches crime cases, public records, legal databases, or sensitive news stories, and statistically, if you are watching this channel, you are, then a VPN is not paranoia. It is basic digital hygiene. I use one. The link is in the description. It takes 4 minutes to set up, and it means your curiosity stays your business. Here is what I want you to do right now, before you close this video. Go look at your browser history from the last 30 days, not to judge yourself, just to look at it the way an algorithm would. A list of names, a list of topics, a list of questions you asked in private that are sitting on a server somewhere with your home IP address attached. That is your digital profile, whether you built it intentionally or not. If anything on that list is something you would not want pulled out of context and handed to someone who does not know you, and for most people who follow true crime, something on that list qualifies, then think about your defaults. If this case opened something up for you, if it changed how you think about digital behavior, about the psychology of self-insertion, about how modern investigations actually work, then subscribe, because this channel goes deeper than most are willing to go. Every week we take a case that looks simple on the surface and find the layer underneath that nobody is talking about. The comment I want from you today is this. Did you think the cooperative witness was always less suspicious? Drop your answer below. I read every single one. And before you go, disclaimer. This video discusses real events for educational purposes. All persons are presumed innocent until proven guilty. Case details have been presented based on publicly available information and should not be taken as legal findings. Thank you for watching Dark Files.